My fiancé laughed when I cried after my dog died. So I left that night and never answered a single call from her again. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and I used to believe empathy was the foundation of love. My mom raised me alone after my dad left when I was 7. She taught me that strength wasn't about silence, it was about caring even when it hurt. Maybe that's why I always felt things too deeply. When I got my golden retriever, Max, during college, he became my anchor, through sleepless nights and heartbreaks. Max was the one constant thing that never judged, never left, and always listened. Then came Jenna. She was the kind of woman who lit up every room, confident, sharp, magnetic. When she laughed, people leaned in. When she touched my hand, I felt like I'd finally been chosen by someone extraordinary. She called me steady, said I had a calming presence. I mistook that for love, her way of saying I made her feel safe. In the beginning, she seemed perfect. During my hardest work years, when I was grinding 16-hour days, trying to build a name for myself, she'd send me texts like, "You've got this, baby. I'm proud of you," and she made me believe we were a team. But over time, the tone changed. When I got emotional over a movie, she rolled her eyes. When I told her about a stressful client call, she sighed, "You really need to toughen up." At first, I thought she was teasing. Then one night, when I comforted a crying friend, she said flatly, "You're too soft. No wonder people walk all over you." That stuck with me. I laughed it off, tried to tell myself she just wanted me to be stronger. But something in her eyes that night made me pause. It wasn't teasing. It was contempt disguised as love. I thought her strength balanced me out. I didn't realize it was slowly erasing who I was. Max wasn't just a dog. He was my quiet proof that loyalty still existed in this world. I'd adopted him in college after finding him shivering behind a dumpster during a winter storm. I was broke, living off instant noodles. But when I looked into those big brown eyes, I knew I couldn't leave him there. For 10 years, he'd been my family from sleepless study nights to my first real apartment. He was there when I failed, when I succeeded, when I didn't have anyone else. Jenna never really got that. At first, she pretended to. She'd post photos with him, captioned our fur baby, and tell her friends, "He's so protective of me." But behind closed doors, it was different. She'd complain about his shedding, about the smell, about how it ruins the aesthetic of our apartment. She'd roll her eyes when I'd come home from work, kneel down, and hug Max before kissing her. One evening, I was vacuuming after Max had tracked in mud from the rain, and Jenna snapped, "You treat that dog like a person. It's not healthy." I froze. "He is family," I said quietly. She scoffed. "It's a dog, Daniel. You need to get your priorities straight." That sentence didn't leave me for days. She wasn't cruel about it, not yet, but her words carried that same dismissive tone. She used when she thought I was being too emotional. Sometimes I caught her watching me and Max with this look, something between jealousy and disgust. Still, I told myself she'd come around. I wanted her to understand what Max meant to me, that he wasn't a distraction, but a reminder of everything good I had left. But deep down, I already knew the truth. She didn't want to share space with anything that made me happy unless it centered around her. And I had no idea how much that truth would hurt me later. Jenna had a way of making love feel like a performance. Everything had to be curated. How we dressed when we went out, how we spoke to her friends, how our apartment looked in photos. I used to think she just had high standards, but over time, it started to feel less like she was proud of me, and more like she was managing me. She started changing small things first. "You look better without that beard," she'd say. Or, "Maybe skip the old hoodie when we go out. It gives broke college energy." I'd laugh and go along with it, wanting to make her happy. But soon, she was editing me in every way that didn't fit her image. She'd mock my taste in music, tease me for reading self-help books, even roll her eyes when I'd talk about how my mom taught me empathy. "You and your feelings," she'd say. "You'd survive 10 minutes in the real world if people weren't nice to you." It stung, but I convinced myself it was love-wrapped in tough honesty. When I'd spend time walking Max or volunteering at the shelter, she'd call it cute, but a waste of time. She wanted me to focus on real goals, like networking with her influencer friends, or upgrading our apartment furniture. Then one night, as we were talking about the future, she casually said, "I don't think Max should live with us after we get married." I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. "What?" She laughed softly. Babe, dog smell. They shed it's just not clean. You'll see when we have a real home. The way she said real home, like the one I'd built, wasn't real cut deep. I wanted to fight back, but I didn't. I just nodded, pretending I understood. But as I lay awake that night with Max's head resting on my chest, I felt something shift. For the first time, I realized love shouldn't require you to shrink to fit inside. Someone else's version of perfect, it started as just another morning. Max didn't rush to the door when I grabbed my keys. He just lay there, his tail giving a weak thump. I crouched down, ruffled his fur, and said, "Hey buddy, you okay?" His eyes met mine, but they looked tired, not sleepy tired. The kind of tired that doesn't go away with rest. By noon, I was at the vet. Jenna had refused to come. "I have a client lunch," she'd said, sliding her lipstick on. "You'll be fine. Don't be so dramatic." But I wasn't fine. Not when the vet came back after the tests, his voice soft. "Careful, his kidneys are failing. It's advanced." The words didn't sink in at first. I just nodded, my hand shaking as Max leaned weakly against my leg. That night, I sat on the floor beside him, the TV off, the lights dim. I hand-fed him small pieces of boiled chicken while whispering, "You're gonna be okay, buddy." I could hear Jenna in the bedroom, sighing loudly as if my grief was an inconvenience. When I didn't come to bed, she appeared at the doorway, arms crossed. "You're sleeping on the floor? Daniel, this is pathetic." I looked up at her, barely recognizing the person I'd once planned a future with. "He's dying," I said quietly. Her expression didn't change. She just shrugged. "Then there's nothing you can do. Come to bed." I didn't answer. "I couldn't." She turned, muttering under her breath. "You care more about that dog than me." And maybe she was right, because at least Max never made me feel small for loving him. Max lifted his head, pressed his paw against my arm, and let out a long, trembling sigh. That sound still echoes in my chest. It was the moment the world went quiet. I'll never forget the silence that followed Max's last breath. It wasn't just the absence of sound, it was the absence of everything. I sat there for what felt like hours, my hand still resting on his fur, afraid to move because that would mean admitting he was really gone. The apartment around me felt hollow, like every bit of warmth had been sucked out of it. When I finally looked up, Jenna was standing in the doorway with her phone in hand. Her expression was blank, maybe even a little irritated. "Daniel, are you seriously crying?" she asked. I blinked, trying to find words, but nothing came out. My throat felt like sandpaper. She gave a small laugh, quiet, sharp, dismissive. "You're crying like you lost a child. It's a dog, Daniel." Something broke inside me. I didn't yell, I didn't curse. I just stared at her, realizing that this was who she truly was. The woman I thought understood me, the one who called me her safe place, was now laughing at the thing that shattered me most. Her voice cut through my silence again. "You're being ridiculous. I get that you're sad, but honestly, this level of emotion isn't normal." Normal. That word hung in the air like poison. She wanted love without depth, comfort without vulnerability, a man who'd never feel too much. "I can't do this right now," I whispered, my voice trembling. She shrugged and walked away, muttering, "Suit yourself." A door closed. The smell of Max's fur still lingered in the air. His collar glinted on the floor near the bed, the little tag tapping softly against the tiles as if echoing a heartbeat that wasn't there anymore. That's when I knew something had ended beyond just Max's life. Something inside me had died tooth apart that still believed love could exist without compassion. The apartment felt like a museum of everything I'd lost: Max's toys by the couch, his bowl still half full of water, the faint smell of him clinging to the blanket. I sat there on the cold floor, numb, until I heard Jenna's laughter drift from the bedroom. She was on a call with a friend. I caught fragments. "Yeah, he's being super dramatic," followed by another laugh. I don't remember standing up. I just remember moving, quietly. I walked into the bedroom, and she looked up, startled. "What?" she said, half annoyed, half curious. I didn't answer. I pulled the duffel bag from under the bed, the one I used for weekend trips, and started folding my clothes. "Are you serious right now?" she asked, sitting up. "You're leaving? Over a dog?" I zipped the bag shut. "No," I said softly. "I'm leaving because you made me feel stupid for loving him." Her jaw tightened. "You're overreacting. You always do this, make everything about your feelings." I slipped Max's worn collar into the side pocket of the bag and finally met her eyes. "That's the thing, Jenna. My feelings are what make me me. You just never liked that version," she scoffed, trying to regain control. "You're not going anywhere. You'll calm down tomorrow." But I didn't respond. I just placed my engagement ring on the kitchen counter next to her untouched glass of wine. The metal clinked against the marble a small. Final sound, by the time she realized I was serious, I was already at the door. She called after me, her voice sharp, panicked. "Daniel, don't be ridiculous. You'll regret this." Maybe I would, I thought. But not tonight. I drove 4 hours with no destination, the city lights blurring through my tears. The passenger seat was empty, but I kept glancing at it anyway, half expecting Max's head to rest there. When I finally stopped at a roadside motel, I placed his collar on the pillow beside me and whispered, "We're okay now, buddy." It was the first night I didn't explain myself to anyone. The next morning, I woke up in that dim motel room with sunlight creeping through the thin curtains, the world outside painfully normal. My phone buzzed, non-stop calls, texts, voicemails, all from Jenna. Some messages sounded angry, others sweet. The pattern was predictable. Guilt, blame, apology, repeat. "Daniel, please, let's talk then. You're being childish." Followed by, "I can't believe you'd walk out over a dog." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every word she sent felt like a hook trying to drag me back into the same silence that had suffocated me for months. Instead, I called my mom. The moment she heard my voice crack, she didn't ask what happened. She just said, "Come home, sweetheart." And for the first time in years, I let myself cry without shame. She told me something simple, something I'd never really understood until that moment. People who mock your pain don't deserve your peace. I spent the next few days at her house, mostly sleeping and walking around aimlessly. Her little backyard was quiet, and I kept expecting to hear Max's bark. At night, I'd dream of him running, healthy, turning back to look at me. I'd wake up reaching for something that wasn't there. Jenna kept calling. When I blocked her number, she messaged me on Instagram. When I blocked that, she emailed me. The subject line read, "Please don't do this to us." Us. There hadn't been an us in a long time. Just me trying to love someone who didn't know what love meant. After a week of silence, her messages stopped. But the quiet that replaced them wasn't peace. Yet it was heavy, haunted, like a house where something terrible had happened and no one had come to clean it up. I told myself I'd never go back. But deep down, I knew Jenna wasn't done with me yet. 2 weeks later, the silence finally broke, but not in the way I expected. I woke up to a flood of texts from friends and coworkers. Screenshots, posts. Jenna had been busy. On Instagram, she'd written this long, vague paragraph about losing someone to grief and how she was trying to stay strong for both of us. Underneath, comments poured in, "You're so brave. He doesn't deserve you. Stay strong." Girl, she'd turned me into the villain. One post even had a photo of Max captioned, "Rip to the sweetest soul. He was our baby." I nearly threw my phone across the room. The same woman who called him just a dog was now milking sympathy from strangers for losing him. I texted her just once. "Take his picture down." She replied instantly, "I have every right to grieve too." That was when I realized what this was really about. Control, even after I left. She still needed to control the story. She started reaching out to mutual friends, twisting everything, telling them I'd been unstable, that I'd lashed out over nothing, that I'd abandoned her without explanation. Some people believed her. A few didn't. One friend, Mark, called me and said, "Man, I don't know what's true anymore, but she's saying some dark stuff." I didn't defend myself. Not because she was right, but because I was tired. Tired of explaining, tired of proving, tired of bleeding in public while she played St. Dot, so I went quiet again. Deleted my social media. Blocked more numbers. I thought that would be the end of it. But silence can be dangerous. It leaves people like Jenna with too much space to perform. And the quieter I got, the louder her lies became. Until one day, one of those lies reached someone I couldn't ignore. The message came from my boss. Just one line. "Hey, can we talk about something Jenna told me?" My stomach dropped. Turns out, she'd reached out to him through LinkedIn. Pretending concern for my mental state, she claimed I'd been erratic and might need time off. Her words were dressed in care. But the poison underneath was obvious. She wanted me branded as unstable. I sat alone in my apartment, bare walls, unpacked boxes, no Max to greet me. I'd left everything behind for peace, yet she still found ways to haunt me. I poured a drink, then another. For the first time, I didn't feel angry, just empty days blurred. I stopped answering calls, stopped eating. Even music felt too loud. When my mom dropped by unannounced, she found me sitting on the floor, staring at Max's collar. She picked it up gently, sat beside me, and whispered, "You can't let someone like her take more from you than she already has." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was drowning in a silence of my own making. That was my rock bottom. Not the shouting, not the heartbreak, just that cold, heavy nothing. I realized I wasn't just mourning Max. I was mourning the version of myself that kept believing love would fix everything. That night, I finally did something different. I looked up grief counseling and booked a session. It felt stupid at first, talking to a stranger about a dog, about a woman who'd laughed at his death. But when the therapist said, "You're allowed to grieve more than one loss at once," I broke down completely. For the first time, I let it all out. And when I walked out of that room, something had shifted. Not healed, but shifted. Because rock bottom wasn't the end. It was the first place quiet enough to hear myself again. Grief counseling didn't fix me overnight, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in months: clarity. The therapist asked me a question that echoed for weeks. If empathy is your strength, why keep giving it to people who punish you for it? I didn't have an answer then, but I promised myself I'd find one. I started small. Morning walks alone. No music, just air and silence. I donated Max's old toys to the shelter where I used to volunteer. The woman there smiled when she saw the worn-out tennis balls. "He must have been loved," she said. My throat tightened, but I managed to smile back. One afternoon, I stayed to help clean kennels. It felt strangely healing caring for dogs who still had a chance. One of them, a small mixed-breed puppy with uneven ears, kept following me around. He looked up at me the way Max used to, without judgment, without conditions. I didn't take him home that day, but something in me stirred. Meanwhile, Jenna's presence faded. Mutual friends stopped mentioning her. Her posts slowed down. I didn't check, but part of me hoped she saw that I wasn't broken without her, that I'd learned to exist again. Quietly, without her permission, I also started journaling every night. Not about her, not even about Max, but about what it meant to feel. The grief, the anger, the guilt, they weren't signs of weakness anymore. They were proof I still had a heart she couldn't crush. One evening, after leaving the shelter, I looked at the sunset bleeding over the city skyline and whispered, "We're okay now, buddy." And for the first time, I almost believed it. But peace has a strange way of inviting ghosts back, especially the ones who hate to be forgotten. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I was making tea halfway through a quiet playlist when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it until I saw her name flash beneath it. Jenna. My chest tightened. I hadn't seen that name in months. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. 30 seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. For a long moment, I just stood there, teacup in hand, deciding whether I was ready to hear her voice again. Curiosity won. "Hey!" Her voice cracked through the speaker, small and trembling. "I know you probably hate me. I deserve that. But I wanted to say, I'm sorry." She took a shaky breath. "My therapist said I should make amends. I was wrong about everything, about Max, about you. I didn't know how to love someone who feels so deeply." I sank into a chair, the sound of her voice dredging up memories I thought I'd buried. She kept talking about how her new relationship had ended, how she finally understood what she'd lost. "You were good, Daniel," she said. "Too good for me. Please, can we talk?" For a second, I almost considered it. The old me, the one desperate to fix things, wanted to call back, to believe that maybe people change. But then my eyes landed on Max's collar resting on the bookshelf. The metal tag glinted in the light, steady and silent, like an anchor. I deleted the voicemail. No reply, no explanation, just silence. Because some closure doesn't come from conversations. It comes from finally refusing to reopen the wound. That night, I went to bed with the windows open. The wind brushed through the curtains, and for the first time, it didn't sound empty, it sounded peaceful. But as I drifted off, one thought lingered. I wasn't the man she broke. I was the man she taught never to settle for less than kindness. It's been a year since that night. My apartment looks different now, lighter, quieter, filled with things that actually feel like me. On my desk, right beside my laptop, sits Max's collar. The leather's worn smooth now, the brass tag scratched from a decade of adventures. I don't move it. It's the one constant reminder of the kind of love that never asked me to change. Life didn't magically fix itself after Jenna. Healing was slower than I'd hoped. But little by little, I started piecing myself back together. I got promoted at work. I started volunteering regularly at the shelter. And a few months ago, I brought home that little mixed-breed puppy who used to follow me around. I named him Leo. He doesn't replace Max, no one ever could, but he's proof that love can exist again without fear. Sometimes, I catch myself talking to Max when I'm alone. "I'm okay now," I tell him. "You'd like Leo, he's a troublemaker." And even though it's quiet, I swear I can almost hear that familiar thump of a tail against the floor, as if he's still somewhere nearby. Keeping watch, I think about Jenna sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with a strange kind of gratitude. She taught me what love isn't. Love isn't laughter at someone's pain. It isn't silence when someone's breaking. It isn't control disguised as care. So I keep Max's collar where I can see it every day, not as a wound, but as a boundary. A reminder that empathy isn't weakness, and kindness doesn't make you soft. It makes you human. The night she laughed, I thought I'd lost everything. But looking back now, that was the night I finally found myself.